This is Gilbert Gottfried.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm vaguely. I need it written down on a piece of paper.
Put it on a card for you.
And I think I might get the title right after having done like 1,000 of these.
Only 20 or so.
Yes, so it's Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions.
Got about a 20-episode curve.
Yes.
I want to put out, too, that we asked a couple of weeks ago for people to submit theme songs for this show. And they're actually coming in.
That's right.
We have 2 now to choose from, so they're not going to be on this episode, but soon.
Yeah.
Very soon.
That's scary.
That people actually have as much time on their hands as we do.
Imagine being a respected composer that you're...
Say they were respected composers.
Yes.
I said they were fans.
Yeah.
Why don't you start us off this week?
Brag to all your friends. Well, I compose the music. Those, not really the podcast so much, but those other things afterwards, that's me. Try to get laid with that.
It's sort of like saying you compose the incidental music on Gilligan's Island, not the theme song, but the little music they play when...
Or the incidental music in The Munsters, which I remember was... Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, my God.
Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. And there was the music
hilarious.
On the Andy Griffith Show whenever Don Knotts
I should know this.
was feeling brave, when he was feeling like
was that when they would play that sort of Dragnetty theme?
Yes,
that kind of thing?
Yeah. Okay. Da 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 da.
That's it.
Da 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 da.
That's brilliant.
Da 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 da.
That's brilliant.
That's when Don Knotts would start strutting.
And the one on Gilligan's Island, let me see if I can get this. It was when Gilligan was riding a bike that washed the clothes. The professor had set up or he was being chased by a giant spider through a cave. There's people now who think we've lost our minds.
Yes.
You know what's interesting about incidental music? If you watch the old Batman series, each villain has the main villains have their own little mini musical stings.
Oh, that's right.
So the Joker has his little, I'm trying to remember what it was now. I think it's dun da da dun 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 dun. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
And the Riddler has one too. And boy, this is really drilling deep.
Now, with the exception of Frank Gorshin, were all of the villains on Batman gay?
Oh, I think almost. Well, let's see. Michael Rennie, I believe. David Wayne, the Mad Hatter. Victor Buono, certainly.
Yes. Cesar Romero.
Butch Romero.
We've discussed many times.
Van Johnson. Jury's out.
I have a friend who says Van Johnson. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. How about Walter Slezak? Probably not, because he had an acting daughter. Erica Slezak. But you never know.
Yeah,
Cliff Robertson was straight. And Gorshin, you said, was straight. And I think as far as we know...
Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith was married to Paulette Goddard.
Yes.
So there's a straight actor.
Yes.
Who else? Well, let's see. Vincent Price? No, I'm going the other direction now.
Yeah, that's also one of those...
Well, he was married.
Yeah, married, but... You always wondered. There's those people you always wondered. You never heard anything on. Kind of like Dom DeLuise always struck me.
Also married with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never heard any stories.
Right. What about Roger C. Carmel? He was a Batman villain.
Which one was he?
He was Colonel Gum in the Green Hornet episode.
Oh, geez.
I know way too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've made our point.
Okay.
Maurice Evans.
Oh, my... Oh,
maybe not gay, just English.
Yeah. He could be one of those.
Boy, we really went down a rabbit hole. Do you want to tell us what film you picked this week?
I'm gonna pick a film I've discussed many times on the show, and it's certainly not a quality film by any stretch of the imagination.
So this isn't even with reservations. This is just...
It's not intelligently written, and don't don't expect to be awed by the special effects.
Oh, I can imagine.
Ladies and gentlemen, from William Castle.
I know where you're going. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vincent Price in The Tingler.
Yeah, I would say don't be awed by the special effects.
It's The Tingler itself looks like it's a rubber centipede.
Pretty much.
And there are some scenes you could basically see the string pulling it along.
Wasn't that part of its charm, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those William Castle films were just fun.
House on Haunted Hill, and there was
everything.
There was so many of them.
But it's
Sardonicus.
based on scientific evidence.
The Tingler, right?
Yes, because it's been proven that if you're scared, when you're scared, you have a tingler living in your body, folks. Everyone, that's been described in the film.
This is in the Mayo Clinic.
Yes,
you can look this up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had my spine x-rayed. Sure enough, there was a tingler on it.
Well, that's the premise.
Yes.
You should explain. You should briefly explain the premise.
Yes. So when you get scared, if you don't scream, see, the tingler starts squeezing your spine.
Correct.
When you get scared. And if you got to scream, so the tingler will let go of your spine.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, the gimmick was they rigged the movie theater seats to give
they
people
had
a shock.
buzzers.
Yeah.
And so there's one part of the movie. This is my favorite part of the movie.
We've talked about this with David Tell, but worth repeating.
Where the tingler gets loose in a movie theater.
Right.
And so it's a double thing
Right.
where both movie and reality collide.
That's right.
And so the screen goes dark. And Vincent Price starts screaming out to both the movie audience and, of course, us, the audience. Scream, scream for your lives. The tingler is loose in the theater. Scream, scream for your lives. And then everyone has to start screaming. And then my favorite part afterwards is after a monster is loose in the theater and he's telling people to scream or the monster will kill you.
Yes.
He goes, "Our movie will resume now." I thought
Everybody returned to their seats.
yeah.
So in the 50s, audiences are sitting. Is it early 60s or late 50s?
Yeah.
Audiences somewhere in America are sitting in a movie theater watching a scene of people sitting in a movie theater.
Yes.
With the tingler
and
loose.
They're watching a blank screen.
And they're
at
watching
this
a blank
point.
screen
Yeah.
when the tingler is on the loose. You know, it was one of those movies where Price just did his best.
Yes.
And you could just see the... It is real. I watched it because TCM had a William Castle salute over Halloween, and I happened to be sick. And I watched House on Haunted Hill. I think Mr. Sardonicus. There was another one I can't think of right away. And my God, I have never seen The Tingler, and I watched it. And I thought, this is terrible.
But it's still fun to watch.
But it's fun. It's
a lot. And there's a guy. Oh, there's a woman who's a mute.
That's right.
So she can't scream.
I forgot about her. And there's a whole other plot with Price trying to kill his wife.
Oh, yes.
Because she's cheating on him. Anyway, The Tingler. Yeah. We'll get mail about this one. I'm going to go pretty far afield here and talk about a movie that I talked about on a friend's podcast. My friends Tim Merrill and Maurice Burstinsky, who are big fans of this show.
You just made up those.
I made them up.
Yes.
I was on their podcast, which is called See Here. It's a great podcast. Check it out. And we talked about a movie called All That Jazz, which you and I were discussing not too long ago.
Yeah, because what I heard about this film, I guess you're familiar with this too. It's like the original actor.
Right.
It was not Roy Scheider. It was his co-star in Jaws, Richard Dreyfuss.
Correct. Who was hot, who was coming off The Goodbye Girl. He had an Oscar and
And Richard Dreyfuss was going to play the Bob Fosse part.
Yeah, Joe Gideon. Right.
And he couldn't get along with Fosse on this. He disagreed. So he used to, talk to his pal, Roy Scheider.
Right,
over dinner and say, I'm not getting along. We can't come to an agreement on this. I'm miserable. And Roy Scheider would show old sympathy, and then Roy Scheider gets offered the part, and he takes it.
You should have sucked up to Billy Barty when you were up for that. When you were both up for that same part. It was very interesting. I think it was a combination of Fosse and Dreyfuss not clicking, and Dreyfuss realizing that he maybe could not carry a musical.
Oh, yeah.
There's a great book about Fosse. The author's name is jumping out of my head right now. It came out maybe a year or two ago, and there's a line attributed to Dreyfuss where he says he's panicking at the thought of his, quote, fat Jewy ass dancing around on a screen. I think it was a combination of a lack of chemistry between the two men and his realization that maybe he
wouldn't look good.
He wouldn't look good. He wasn't going to sell this at all. And yeah, it is interesting how Scheider stepped in.
When they were casting Fantasy Island, I would confide to my friend Hervé Villachez.
Oh, really?
And he would pretend to be sympathetic and go, give up. I feel for you. Give up. I have nothing but sympathy for you.
And stole the damn part right out from under you.
Yes.
That sawed-off little...
Yeah, and then he called me when he got... And he goes, fuck you, Gilbert. I have successful series now.
Oh, God. I can't get enough of that one. So you were glad when he checked himself out. Yeah. He had it coming. This is the all tangent show, by the way. Yeah. It's a few words about all that jazz. See it or listen to the episode of See Here where I talk about the film. If you can find it, you can find it online. It's a wonderful podcast. It's a brilliant, self-indulgent, masterfully directed film. I mean, it's one of those films that people love or hate because it's very. Again, the word is self-indulgent.
And, I've just started to realize something. His name is Gideon.
Yeah, Gideon.
Yeah, so is that blow Gideon, blow?
You know what? I think it was named after a play that Paddy Chayefsky had written because Fosse was friends with Paddy Chayefsky. I think that was the origin of the name Gideon. It's in it. You could find some trivia on this film or go to IMDb.
Can you look it up and just tell me?
We don't have the time right now
to read.
It's a warts and all biography. I mean, it's a very dark look at himself, brutally honest at his philandering, at his how difficult he was to work with, his substance abuse. But it's a great film. It's a versatile. It's a biopic. It's a drama. It's a black comedy. It's a musical. A fun cast. Cliff Gorman turns up playing the Lenny Bruce part that he played.
That's right, because
in the play.
Cliff Gorman in the play Lenny,
correct.
And they say he was great as Lenny.
But then when the studio they wanted
a star.
Correct. When it became a feature film, they wanted Dustin Hoffman. But he brings Cliff Gorman back to basically play the character, which in the film is called in all that jazz. That movie within a movie is called The Stand Up.
And then Cliff Gorman then was also successful in the play, and I guess he was in the movie of Boys in the Band.
Oh, Boys in the Band, sure.
And then he was desperate. He spent the rest of his life trying to prove to everyone that he wasn't gay.
Because he was so convincing
in
the part. Yeah.
And I remember him being on in a magazine article in Look or Life where he's got a big cigar in his mouth, trying to look like a
Bob
tough
Guccione
guy.
or something.
Yes, with a cigar, and you're thinking, that cigar looks like a peanut.
That's funny. He was a good actor.
He
died fairly young. John Lithgow turns up in the movie. Jessica Lange as the Angel of Death.
And is Anne Reinking?
Anne Reinking playing basically Anne Reinking, playing one of Fosse's. Playing Fosse's girlfriend, but she was an ex-girlfriend at the time. And Ben Vereen is wonderful in the film.
Okay, so that's all that jazz
Yeah, and the Tingler.
And the Tingler.
And in one episode, we managed to talk about Cliff Gorman, Hervé Villechaize, and incidental music from the Andy Griffith Show.
Yes.
We cover everything here.
So this was Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Podcast. See the Tingler and all that jazz. They're very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Indistinguishable.